Welcome back, everybody. It is Winsbow Fantasy, episode 186. I'm Van Burnett, joined as always by Steve Gesuele. We got a fun show ahead here. The pitcher list mock draft for 2026 is underway. And Steve, we are looking at draft landscape and our early takeaway. Blank slate horizon for next year. And it is always like, I don't know, the earliest moment where you kind of look at everything and you're like, oh, this is what the draft is going to look like. Some of these names we've been talking about all year, and you have these questions of kind of how early will people go, how late people will fall, position scarcity. So super fun topic. Excited to be here chatting. I'm on the road. So for those of you guys on the YouTube, pardon the Kansas City hotel, but Steve, it's great dialing in and talking baseball. How's it going, man?
Yeah, it's great. This has been a ton of fun. Nick Pollock does a great job organizing this. We've done it, I think, 3 or 4 years now. I know we used to do like mock drafts, like that weren't official podcast mock drafts, but this podcast mock draft is something that Nick gets started basically like the day the season ends. It's all the podcast hosts from the great network that we have here. And everyone takes it very seriously. Sometimes mock drafts can kind of, not that people don't put an effort, but this is taken as seriously as you can a mock draft. So,
because you got to answer the bell with Nick.
And it's fun to talk about across the network, and people use it for content as we're doing right now. We'll each have our show. Each podcast will have a show with Nick, so be on the lookout for that. You and I will join him at some point, I'm sure, as soon as this wraps up. So yeah, it's fun. It's a super cool thing to do, and yeah, there's so many questions that we have. It's like, how high is Junior Caminero going to go? First round, second round? Well, we got that question answered. We'll get into that a little bit, and there's just other things that come to shape that we could ask ourselves these questions and ponder between the two of us. Hey, what do you think about this for next year as when we're in September? But when there's 12, 14 people, whatever else it is, with co-managers and all that, taking this very seriously, you get those questions answered quickly. Like, is there going to be a discount on Acuna? No, not really. Like, what about Tatis? So you kind of had a down year power wise. Well, people still believe in him, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Where does Raleigh go? Those are all things we'll get into, but it's fun to get those answered in the sense. And I know that all off season we'll quote NFBC ADP, and rightfully so. I mean, there's value to it. I know we try to shy away from it from time to time just because it's not the most popular popular platform that people play on, despite it seeming that way on Twitter. And I'm not trying to take a dig at it or anything. Like, there are the values to it. It's the high stakes of high stakes, right? Like, that's where, if you want to play competitive fantasy baseball, that's where you go, and there's value to it. But most people don't play like that. This is a 12-team Yahoo league, like the most common format that people play fantasy baseball at. And there's really not much of that as far as ADP. So this is a really useful tool early on as you start to prep for drafts, which are coming up quickly. Like, it's basically the playoffs. And then once you see November come around, like, people are just drafting. You'll see a bunch of draft boards. You'll see them all throughout December. And then January now is like when it gets super, super busy. So it's right around the corner. To have this as a reference this early on is invaluable in my mind. So glad we did it. Excited to discuss it.
Yeah, and I guess housekeeping, we are currently in the middle of the 14th round, and it's a 12-team Yahoo eligibility, 2 Ohtanis, all that good stuff. And we had draft slot number 5. So I think that's another just, some fodder for us to chat about. But Steve, I think earliest thing you do is you look at the first round. And the top of the first round, and Judge and Ohtani are up there, which is exactly like last year, and rightfully so. I think that's also maybe the first time in a few years that it's kind of been that chalky at the very top. Would you agree with that?
This is Trout, right? Like, Trout had that run of, you prayed to get the first pick, and take Trout and have that opportunity for whatever, 8 to 10 years, right? I remember writing an article about that when he finally fell below ADP one,
Yeah.
like
It was the
4 or
Trey
5 years
Turner.
ago.
I think it became Trey
Yeah, yeah,
Turner, and then it was
yeah,
like
yeah,
Acuna, and
yeah,
now it's kinda cool to see that Judge and Ohtani are kinda sharing this
exactly. Yeah.
peak together with, like, back to back, so that I think is a cool early observation. Bobby Witt, for all kind of the, ups and downs and what we thought maybe we could see a 1-1 season from Witt, and ended up great. So Bobby Witt stayed. I think maybe the biggest change when you look at Soto, who jumped from, I think last year he was 8, 9, 10 in that territory. Soto goes up to 3. So we'll probably do a whole episode that just hits on the first round, right? So we don't want to spend tons of time here.
Yeah.
But Steve, I'll let you talk about the biggest surprise of the first round, which had a little pop. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely surprised, maybe less surprised than others. We went Jose Ramirez at 5, and then the next pick, our fearless leader Nick Pollock, went Junior Caminero, and I don't hate it. I don't know if I would have made that pick. I think I prefer Carroll. I might prefer Ellie, but I could see not by much. Um, Julio too, I could have a good argument, but I really don't see many others. Even Acuna, but I would definitely take Caminero. I think before Tatis, just that raw power, and I think there's average upside. Like his BABIP was super low. Like people talk about the home road splits, and especially considering Caminero played half of his games in Tampa Bay, where it had Yankee Stadium dimensions, and on nights when the wind was blowing out, it was by far like the most hitter-friendly park in the majors,
Mm-hmm.
down in the Big Stein in Tampa, that George M. Steinbrenner Field. He won't have that next year. They're going to go back to the Trop. I really don't ding him that much for it. I still project Caminero as a 280, 35 to 40 homer guy with, 100 runs, 100 RBI type of player. Like that's what I view him as. Sure, maybe this was on the high end of homers at 46 and he got a few extra because of Tropicana, but his
Yeah.
BABIP on the road was like 120. Like it's not going to stay like that. And for a guy that has this much power and doesn't strike out, like the only thing is you're not getting the steals, and that's not as big a deal in a head-to-head league. Like he is not going to go here in NFBC in their standard 5x5 roto. He's just not, because there's no steals there. But I think he'll go late first, early second, just because that's kind of where
Mm-hmm.
guys that are 4 category studs go, and that's what I think Caminero is.
Yeah. Interesting to hear you say you project him at 280. Were you just tossing that out because he hit 264?
Yeah,
The
I think
XBA was at 270. Like that's in the range for sure.
I
But
think because he hits the ball so hard, doesn't strike out. Like I think
true.
average is a plus tool for him. I don't think it's something that
Mm-hmm.
should be average at best, right? Like, he struck out 19% of the time, and had a 260 BABIP with a hard hit percentage of 51.4. Like,
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
the XBA was, 270, like 275. That's in
It's
line with
good.
sort of with what I expect, but
Yeah.
I think there could be better years. As this, I think, was more of like, hey, probably got a little bit unlucky as far as balls falling and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just 22 years old. So yeah, Caminero, and even the
Crazy,
7
crazy
steals
good
is kind
year
of
for
chipping
how
in.
young
It's
he was. Yeah.
incredible. So yeah, that was the big surprise. You mentioned some of the other names, Acuna and Tatis at the back end of the first round, and then Tarek Skubal goes at the very end. Paul Skeens was a couple picks after him. So I guess that's where you go next on draft landscape is you always want to look at what's happening with pitchers. So in this draft, we saw 4 starting pitchers go in the first 3 rounds. I pulled up last year's as well, Steve, just to get a side by side throughout this podcast. But coincidentally, the same amount, 4 pitchers went in the first 3 rounds last year. So that is pretty similar. Of course, a couple of the names changed. Scooble and Skeens were the consistent ones. I believe Crochet might have been in there as well.
Yeah, I think he was SP3, right? Was he?
I think that sounds right. He was definitely in the top 4, though.
Yeah.
And then Eno Saris went with Hunter Brown with the first pick in the 3rd round, and that was the only
who's going to be 4. Yeah, I think that's we have a question, and I want to ask this to you, like, who are you taking of these 3? Because I think you could take. I would argue for any one of them 1. I know Nick has Crochet 1 on his early list, but I think the biggest question after those 3 is, okay, who's number 4? And you know what, Brown, and then there was a pretty big gap to 5, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I think that's what I mean, spoiler alert, we jumped in on starting pitcher in the 4th round, which is earlier than we have done, I think, since we've done this exercise, Steve. And we went Brian Wu, and I think that's just, I guess, to go back to the numbers a little bit. After the first 4 pitchers went in the first 3 rounds, 9 starting pitchers went in the next 2 rounds. Last year, that was 3 more than last year. So I think there was a little bit of maybe a little bit of a premium push up rather than last year. There was such a major good glob from pick 80 to 100, 110 that maybe people are kind of prioritizing, but we jumped in on Brian Wu, and I like that. In terms of 4, I got to be honest, I don't know that I have my mind up or made up yet, but it definitely feels like that's a teardrop. So I would like to be, in the middle or bottom of that tier versus paying first. I mean, there's no way
that's where that jump went in, right? Like, that's why there were 6 more pitchers taken in rounds 4 to 6, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a pitcherless draft. That's all every single person here fades pitching a bit, right? In these drafts, and that's kind of how it works in head to head and things like that. This tells me that there's going to be a super high premium on starters in NFBC. Like, I think you'll see that sale pick in the middle of the 5th round, right? Or 6th round. That'll be probably I don't know, the 4th, in NFBC. It'll just be bumped up, because there is a pretty big tier. I think, after maybe Hunter Green, I think you then kind of get into okay, I'm pretty good with these, Max Fried, Kirby, Peralta, Schwellenbach, Reagans. I'm okay with those guys. Yeah.
Yes. I think you're gonna want an
is
ace
the last one with super amount of upside that could strike out 13 guys in an inning, right? That's kind of it. So there definitely is going to be
that's 11. So Green was SP11, and I think I'd agree with that. You definitely want one of those first 10, 12 as an out and out ace, because those guys are rock solid. And then, like you said, you're kind of hoping that those next guys can be a viable ace, but it does feel like there's a drop off there. How did you feel about, I know we got a section at the end to talk about our whole team, but how did you feel being one that usually waits to jump in the pool?
Because of that, I was fine.
Okay. Yeah.
I think my favorite, though, and we would have got a little bit earlier, but is Yamamoto. I think I like Yamamoto. I think I'm going to have him on a lot of my teams next year. I think that's a perfect combination of floor and upside and just team contacts or wins. And, it seems like the year-over-year improvement where, I know he battled some injuries in his first year, and I think he's really becoming, I don't know if he has the ability to overtake one of those 3 in Scooble, Skeens, or Crochet, but I think you get pretty close. I'll pitch a question right back to you. out of those three, Scooble, Skeens, Crochet, who do you have as your number one SP? I know we normally don't dabble in that, but you never know. There's sometimes in FPC we do. But who
I
would you
like.
take if you had to take a
Yeah,
pitcher first?
I went Scooble this year in
Yeah, yeah,
NFBC,
yeah,
and I have no reason to kind of waver on that. Like the
yeah.
240 strikeouts, 221 ERA, 0.89 WHIP. Like when you see him with 13 Ks, and that, like, he just seems like he's at his absolute peak. I mean, I do think that you can make the argument for any of them, but I think I'm where this draft is, that I'm Scooble and then a slight drop, and then Skeens next, just because we haven't seen the gaudy strikeout total yet in the same way. And then Crochet, I don't know, man. I guess I'm still just like, as incredible as he was, and credit to Nick Pollock for like kind of calling out that he didn't see volume as an issue, but I gotta think that 205 innings is going to be like the high water mark for him. Where Scooble, it's just like
I
a
mean, he got more than
slightly
two. He got more than 200 innings this year. This year, right?
this year. That's what I'm saying. I think this
Yeah,
is the watermark.
yeah.
Whereas I think we've seen 2 seasons in a row with Scooble over 190 innings. I don't
But then
know. I
there's the
mean,
other side of that. It's like, all right, at what point does the volume catch up with you? Right? Like, it's how
yeah,
do you
you're
thread
right.
that needle?
You can make the
Yeah, it's
argument
hard.
whatever way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I would go Scooble. Do you have a leaning right now?
My heart says Skeens,
I
like,
know. I knew
just
it
like
did.
the way that I think that just like how he's maturing and like building on 133 innings last year, 187 innings this year, improving in the walk rate, improving in the swing strike rate despite the overall K percentage going down. The just absolute amazing run prevention. Like, I think Scooble and Crochet have probably a little bit higher strikeout upside right now, but Skeens, like, for whatever reason, just does not allow runs, right? Like, he adds an ERA that starts with a 1 2 years in a row. That's insane. That's unheard of. That's like
Yeah,
Pedro
that is.
Martinez run from 99 to 2000 type of thing. And I think that there is maybe it's hard to believe that you're saying this with the guy that struck out 30% of the batters he faced, but you could see sort of another step as he enters into his, age 24 season next year. He'll be 24 in on May 29th. So I think I would go Skeens, but it's close. Honestly, like, if I had to, like, I'll be it's a lawyer answer, but I'd be fine with any one of those three. But give me Skeens, then maybe Crochet, and then Scooble, just because I think that Scooble's volume over the last few years sort of concerns me a little bit. Like, I think
Mhm.
those guys are on those guys being Skeens and Crochet are kind of on the up and up, and Scooble might just tick down a little bit, just because that's sort of what happens with guys that consistently throw 200 innings. We
Yeah,
want to get those guys that throw 200 innings, and then after they do for a bit, they break. Not that
yeah,
I,
and
not
Scooble's
that I'm hoping that happens or think that happens, but yeah,
he's a little older at 28,
yeah,
where Crochet's 26, Skeens, like you said, 23. But yeah, that's an embarrassment of riches up there because of how much those feel like the big 3. Is there any chance that you kind of jump in on grabbing one of those guys? Because
yeah. If I'm in the
the
back, if
hitters,
I'm in the back, if I'm in the
uh-huh.
back of the second round, you know, I would consider that more than I have in the past. Especially if one fall, like if I'm like in the middle of the first round and one falls, maybe Crochet should have got a little bit more consideration for us when we went Gunner there. Although I do love that value, because my feelings on Gunnar Henderson, despite me
Yeah.
rostering him everywhere last year and being a bit burned. I just think he is a first round talent. But like, imagine getting like Soto Crochet. That's such a good
I
start that
know.
Nate
That's
Schwartz
what
had
Nate
there. Like,
Schwartz said. Yeah. And then he turned
that's
around and got
amazing.
Marte,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about second, how thin that is, but that's a good first 3. Nice. Well, that's fun talking about pitchers there. I guess let's close the book on pitchers before we take our first break. When you look at the overall board, Steve, like, we got for anyone on the live stream, we got it shared right now, but the dark blue is starting pitcher.
Yeah.
When you look at this beyond kind of that early first 5 rounds, any major takeaways? Like, you got Tyler Glass now going in the 8th round. I know we grabbed Strider in the 9th as kind of coincidentally, it's like where he was going last year, but
Yeah.
he's kind of the mystery box there. Just the run in round 8 where we saw like 9 pitchers taken. That's kind of around that like pick 100 mark, which is what we saw last year. Do you see any like sweet spots in the draft or any big takeaways on pitcher beyond like pick 50?
Yeah, I like most guys that go in round 7 to 10. Like, I'm pretty good with anyone. Like, there's Yuri Perez. Like, love that. Framber Valdez. That's who we ended up as our SP2. I think we kind of went with that just because Brian Wood did have some injury concerns heading into this year, and there's a bit more floor there. I know he's been on the older side and is a free agent, and that worries me a bit. But I think we could have went a little bit earlier, especially since Wu doesn't have the longest track record, and some injury history there, right? But there's other guys later that I think we can get into a little bit, and that have a ton of upside, like beyond that, right? Like Trevor Rogers as our SP4 is pretty awesome considering how good he was for 3/4 of this year. And I think there's upside plays too, right? Like Chase Burns, Cam Slitler, even like Jesus Luzardo
Nolan
was
McLean.
Nolan McLean. Like Jesus Luzardo had like what he second or third in the NL in strikeouts. Like I know the ERA was a bit high, and there was that stretch where he was tipping pitches and got rocked that made his ERA look a little bit unsightly, but Jesus Luzardo was one of the better pitchers 5 out of the 6 months this year, and he went in round 9. So as much as I do want to take hitters early or pitchers hitters early and maybe swaying on that just with how this draft went, there's still a lot to like in those middle rounds, as there always is in my mind. But there are landmines too. You don't know which one's going to get hurt or be a bit disappointing. So it's the same but also different.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think something that comes to mind to me is that it feels like last year I was really excited about pitchers from pick 150 to like 230, and I found it easy for myself to talk myself into pushing names up that I was really excited about. I think it will be the same this year, because I think once you get to like the SP5 range, like I know we talked about Gavin Williams, but some of those names aren't as like when it gets into Nick Lodolo, Sandy Alcantara, Bryce Miller, Tanner Bybee, like I could be swayed on whatever those surging pitchers are that
you
are
could
like,
talk yourself into any one of those guys is kind of what you're saying.
I'm actually saying whoever starts being the shiny toy in February with an ADP of 190, I think I might be aggressive on kind of
over those
reaching
guys.
sooner
Okay.
over some of those names that just feel a little more established. But
Yeah.
it's an early. I mean, we're in October here, so it's just trying to
we
do
don't have our Ryan Weathers and Clay Holmes just yet, right?
Exactly.
Like soon we'll
Great.
get them.
Yeah. Nice dig on those names. So, okay, well, we're talking more, and we're talking some bats, but we're going to take our first ad break. We'll be right back after this. All right, so Steve, to jump in on one of the biggest question mark names of the draft is, what do you do with Cal Raleigh, who is he's just a conundrum, because you look at the 60 homers, 14 steals is just absurd. But the season he put up, if you bought that 90% of it was true at the catcher position, he's a top 5 pick. But we had questions. You called those out. I think a few shows back, I was like, I think Cal Raleigh will be a first rounder. In this draft, he actually goes second to last pick in the second round. So Hacks and
It is a
Jack
one
started.
catcher draft, one catcher
True.
league.
Good. That's
So
a great call out.
please note that. Yeah.
But Hacks and Jacks goes Ohtani, second pick overall, and gets Cal Raleigh at pick 23. Obviously the postseason he's having as well. So what's crazy is from Cal to the next catcher, it wasn't until the 10th round. Whereas last year we saw 3 catchers in the first 7 rounds. So it's like there's a king of the mountain, and how early does he go? And then it seems like a lot of people were waiting on the depth of the position that we've talked about all year. So just curious your thoughts on Raleigh, man. I think that I am, I'm a sucker for the breakout. I think I'll be more interested in like mid second round at least on Raleigh, even in one catcher. But talk to me what you think here.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna have any shares. Like I just
You think it's
can't.
coming all the way back?
I don't know about all the way back, but even if it goes 75% of the way back, like I don't know, like how high did Sal Perez go when he had his how valuable was he when he had his what was it, 49 homer season? Like I guess it's still really good, but I just don't see him repeating these numbers when so many of the underlying metrics were basically exactly the same year over year for Raleigh. Yeah, he pulled the ball a bit more, but the hard hit percentage around the same, the strikeout rate a little bit better. Yeah, he walked a bit more, but whether that's to be expected when you're hitting tanks every night, right? I think that we talk about how the new swing metrics and the squared up percentage and an ideal contact rate is sort of an indicator of guys that are just running hot, right? And I think that's kind of what Raleigh did just all year with that pull percentage. A 25% homer on the fly ball when his career has been 19.5%. Like I just think that there has to be some regression, and we're paying the absolute top of the market for him. I just don't see him. I think he's closer to what he was in 23 and 24 than he is in 2025, and that's 35 to 40 homers, 220 average, 230 average. That's a far cry from 60 and 247. It's I may be wrong. This may look really stupid. You may do it again, but I don't know. I'm buying the longer track record rather than what seems to me to be an outlier season.
Yeah, and he's it's probably the cop out is it's probably somewhere in between, right? And that's where the ADP has him, because I think if he's a 44 home run guy and he's 235,
yeah,
it's
probably
catcher,
worth it,
that's probably like, beginning of the third round, end of the second. But yeah, it's a fascinating one. In terms of just how he did his damage this year, like you said, it might be more of a descriptive than a predictive, but the pull air rate went way up. And then he was pretty similar in terms of what he did on breaking pitches and off speed, but it was just fastballs. He turned from a really good or great power hitter to Babe Ruth, and it's just like the 620 OP or slug. So yeah, I mean, it's a good point that a lot of the underlying
and like
stuff looks pretty
volume
similar.
could creep down a bit there too if he's not, hitting home runs every 8 at bats, 9 at bats, right? Like he's a catcher. There's a lot of wear and tear. Like they needed his bat in the lineup every single day. If he's a 220, 30 homer hitter, there's going to be more off days there. He's played 159, 153 games in back-to-back seasons. I mean, these are all similar things I said to Sal Perez, and maybe it's just this is super
But he
Sal
did
Perez,
DH.
and yeah, he did DH a bunch, but
He 38 games.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a big number. And now
those
he's
could
an
turn into
absolute
true off
hero in
days.
Seattle. So
Is sort of what my point could be, rather than them DHing if he is just a little bit worse with the stick.
cold or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, another name that is kind of new to the top two rounds is Nick Kurtz. Another just exciting thing for the future of baseball at age 22, the 290 average, 36 homers, like monster season, and the first base landscape that's looked pretty dang similar year in, year out, where we're like, oh, we want to get one of those big five guys. It's Vlad, it's Matt Olson, it's Pete Alonso, it's Freddie Freeman. Here we got Nick Kurtz as the second first baseman off the board after Vlad. And he went in the third pick of the second round. So I actually take that back. He was the first baseman even before Vlad. So what do you make of Kurtz here, Steve? Do you think this is I guess one, do you think it's priced appropriately? And two, do you see yourself having any shares?
Yes and yes. He is my number one first baseman. I think he's a first rounder for me. First base is sneakily tricky. I think we've kind of said that over the last few years. There's like, the strikeout rate is a bit high. That is concerning, but
Very high. Yeah.
yeah, at 31%. So you rarely see a 31% strikeout rate with a 290 batting average. Curious, I don't have the Savant page up. What is the XBA on that?
255.
Yeah, yeah. But still, the power, like this is like I think this is like Matt
He's in
Olson at
100.
the breakout happened at age 22 for him,
Yeah,
right?
I should call out. I should have called out it. He did all that 36 homers in 117
Yeah,
games.
yeah, yeah. 489 plate appearances and 36 homers. That's 50 homer. That's 50 homer pace. Up there with Raleigh and stuff and Judge. So, there the power to me is just too appealing. Sure, there's going to be some swing and miss, and I would take I'd buy closer to the XBA than the actual average, but he hits the ball so hard. The 90 runs and 86 RBIs in the 117 games. That's crazy, right? That's like 120. That's like 240 total you're looking at there in a full year. So yeah, I'm very interested in Kurtz. I would take him in that range in the early second round, and he is my number one first baseman. I just am enamored by the power. Maybe there is a bit of a sophomore slump with that strikeout rate, but he didn't strike out that much in the minors. I know it was a super short stint. He was drafted in 2024, so crazy ascent to the big leagues there. But I think that
Do you have the K
there
rate
can be
from the
some
minors?
progression. Yeah. So I'll just give you the biggest sample, right? And the biggest sample was actually last year in 101 plate appearances. He struck out 26% of the time at AAA. In 50 plate appearances in 2024, he struck out 20% of the time. He walked 24% of the time. So that's just he was just overmatching his first year out of school, out of college. So not much of a sample to go on, but I would just project some growth in the strikeout rate there, and maybe that leaves some room for upside on what should be a 250 hitter. But I think there's more than enough power to compensate for that.
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue that another first baseman should be above him that has just that kind of
Vlad's a
mystery
better
box.
real life, like all around hitter, but not for
Right.
fantasy, right? Like we've seen too much of the mid 20 homer power seasons for Vlad.
Correct. Yeah, it seems
Yeah.
intentional. And the guys going right after Nick Kurtz in this draft were Kyle Tucker, Kyle Schwarber, Jackson Churio, Trey Turner, Gunner, Vlad, Crochet, and then Cal Raleigh. So do any of those jump out at you as like they really should be above? Like I feel like it's a kind of a fair grouping. It's more just
Yeah.
like what do you want in a way?
I mean, maybe Tucker. Maybe we're digging him too much because he's been banged up so much. Like, think about the starts that Tucker got off to, more so in 2024, when it was a longer before that shin injury. And even this year, the first month or so with the Cubs, it looked like he was like going to be an MVP candidate, and then
Yeah.
wasn't as clear of an injury, but he was banged up all year essentially. Um, Schwarber is interesting, but Nick Kurtz just seems like a young Kyle Schwarber in a sense, right? Like,
Hmm.
so give me that there. Churio is also interesting too. I think in Roto and not in head to head, Churio might be a better play, but just because Kurtz is sort of one of those four categories, maybe one of them with a question mark with average, but I think at least he could be someone that doesn't hurt you with average there. So, yeah, not much for me not to like about Nick Kurtz.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would go Schwarber,
Okay,
slightly
that's
over,
fair.
but I think I like him over Curio and Tucker's. Tucker's a
Mm.
close one. Man, I still think I guess when you look at Raleigh next to Kurtz, it's like you're trading off 20 points of batting average
You're getting
for
the catcher,
position.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Like that one, I don't. To me, there shouldn't be an 8 pick gap there. I think to me it feels more like it's a coin flip situation, but it'll be fun to watch all off season. To keep going into other topics, I mean, just general landscape observations that 13 outfielders went in the first 3 rounds, which was exactly the same as last year. So
Huh.
I think Steve, what we talked about last year is that outfield kind of in a way thins out. You know, this past year it was like if you missed out on outfield super early, it was like is Lawrence Butler your OF1? You know, Quan was up higher last year. Then there was like Suzuki was at the end of that,
Mhm.
or at the beginning of that tier, and then like an Ian Happ was near the end of that, like pick 120. Any observations about outfield, like
I
as a
mean,
position overall this year?
our team's a perfect example. We were the last team to take an outfielder.
Hmm.
I think that's
I
right.
think that's
And
right.
George Springer is our OF1. Which if you just look at the back of the baseball card, there's not much not to like about that. And you look at George Springer's underlying numbers from this year alone, you're ecstatic. But the last 2
Fifth
years
round, by
also
the
happened
way.
for George Springer. So, that kind of tells you where it is. It is another top heavy position. But that being said, there are a lot of interesting options. Even beyond that, I like say Suzuki. We went with next round. Bellinger, also like Yelich. Kyle Stowers, another really interesting pick a little bit later.
Uh-huh.
Uh, there's guys to like, but it definitely is top heavy as far as like OF1s. Um, so if you do like, and a lot of those guys go in the first 2 rounds, right? Like, how many of those
You're right.
outfielders went in the first 2 rounds? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 9 in the first 2 rounds. So that's 9 of those, what, 13? In the first two. I know that sort of micromanaging it there and breaking down your
But
statistic
you're
there
right.
even
Like you got to
further.
invest.
But
You got to
their first
invest.
their
You got to
first round
invest.
picks, like there's a lot of like it's like shortstops too in a way. It's right like your center fielders and your shortstops are going to be some of the best players on in the bigs, so they go early.
Hmm.
You know, maybe shortstop a little bit less so. There's less there, but you need 3 outfielders. You only need 1 shortstop really. So you got to think about it if you don't get an outfielder in your first 2, 3 picks.
Hmm. Because the after that big wave, and we'll see if this is how the dust settles on ADP, but all those outfielders and up till Tyler Soderstrom. So, like you mentioned, Bellinger, Suzuki. Then there was like 3 or 4 rounds where only 3 or 4 outfielders went when everybody was loading up on pitching. So I don't know how
Yeah.
much of that is just kind of like the nature of how this draft shook out. But yeah, I think it is something that it would be advised to jump in on outfield in the first 4 or 5 rounds. But it's probably like every year that you can't draft every single position. So
No, no. You
you're
need
gonna
to
have
pick one
a hole
that's
somewhere.
yeah, you need to pick one that's going to be maybe not a hole, but a little bit weaker than you want it to be, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you
I
could just
that
fill every
said,
spot and have a strength at every position, this would be an easy game, right?
Steve, I think we did pretty good to go Springer and Suzuki right
Yes,
after that. Like it
yes,
feels
yeah.
like we have 2
Hmm.
outfield twos that I'd be super excited about. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So it's like, does that
and
equal
at
an
certain
outfield one?
points, like right where definitely outfield ones, like George Springer from the All Star break was like one of the best hitters in the bigs.
Yep.
Say Suzuki until the All Star break was one of the best hitters in the bigs, and sort of fell off in the second half. So yeah, and on the year, both those guys' lines look great, and I think I would project them for somewhat similar, maybe a little bit of more regression for Springer just because of his age and just
Mm-hmm.
how the
Out of
last 2
nowhere.
years went, but clearly something changed with him, and I'm fine with that for where he went. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think the guy that we were considering right after him in Jackson Merrill, right? I think that's the opposite end of the coin, right? You could talk yourself into Jackson Merrill bouncing back and being a second round pick again. Or you could say, hey, yeah, George Springer's just going late because of his age. And he was just that good.
Yep. Yeah. I'm excited to get into that one with Nick because I feel like
Yeah.
Springer, I know I was joking, is a fun flag
Yeah.
plant and one to
Yeah.
like make a
Yeah.
debate
Oh,
for.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, we got a handful of other observations. We can kind of open it up and just talk about some fun names, but we're going to take our second ad break and we'll be right back after this. Okay, so Steve, not a area I hone in on every year, but maybe it's high time that I do pay more attention to relievers because I've been in purgatory for all of
Mhm.
our industry leagues in that like fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth place. Uh, but relievers is one that you have to kind of assess what the landscape's doing. This year, there were 4 relievers drafted between rounds 5 through 7. Last year, 9 relievers, the first 9 were drafted between 6 and 10. So to make some sense of the numbers, it's like there was a little mini bunch this year, I think 4 or 5 that were kind of pushed up that were a little bit pricier. And then last year, there was a bigger run in like the 9th and 10th round. This year, the run was more like the 11th and 12th round. So, as that relates to actual pick numbers, it was like the shotgun blast for relievers really took off if you didn't invest early at pick like 125 instead of pick, 105. So, what do you make of the relief pitcher landscape this year when you look at like, again, Saris was
Yeah.
kind of the brave one. He went Edwin Diaz in the 5th round. And then it wasn't until mid of the following round that Mason Miller went. Andres Munoz and Johan Duran went in the 7th round. And then it was kind of a little bit of a wait before that next batch came. But thoughts on the relief landscape?
Another, this isn't going to be a proxy for NFBC drafts, and I know does more NFBC, so that's probably why he leaned there, and I'm not surprised that he was the first. Not saying that that's wrong, but that's just listening to Rates and Barrels every day and knowing what those guys do. That's not surprising. That would probably be my order of relievers. That being said, there was a headline today about Mason Miller that his role was uncertain for 2026, right? And that was sort of a hot button topic. Despite how good he was with the Padres when he first went over there, it's like maybe these guys gave up. Leo DeVries, who's one of the best prospects in baseball, for for some guy that they not just some guy, but one of the best relievers in the game, but they may have grander plans for him in rotation. It seems like that window is at least slightly cracked, or door slightly cracked to that actually happening. But that said, I mean, yeah, those are. I think there is I think that these are tiered properly, right? Like Diaz is sort of the old reliable, like volume wise, like you know guy that's going to be in the role and not even like ever pitch like the eighth instead of the ninth, those sort of things. Like he is the closer and like probably the Vegas odds on leader for leading the league in saves. So I understand that, and he does just strike out the world too. So you know cool, just career arc for him too, especially after his first year. That was a disaster in New York, and to just become like but the best closer that there is in the true sense and definition of the word. But yeah, Miller, Duran, and Munoz, I think are a good tier. And then there's a bunch of guys that I like later on. We don't have a closer yet, but I think we've been considering it. But all those guys you can't go wrong really with Hader, Chapman, despite his age. Cade Smith looked really good down the stretch. So there's a good amount of options, but obviously in the NFBC these guys will be bumped up much higher.
I think I could see myself getting some shares of Munoz. I feel like it's not like the priciest one in the world, but it is.
And the skills are like really as good as anyone really. True,
run
like
prevent the ratios.
There were some years where like he would get like 20 saves because like he came in and like a fireman, but now it's like okay, he's the closer, capital C. Got
26 years old. Yeah,
like close to 40 saves this year, right? Like once you sort of get to that threshold, like this is soft analysis. Like once you become a 40 save guy, it's like you're not really used like in other situations anymore, right? Like you're like that kind of happened to Diaz, right? A little bit, right? Like, he got whatever the 50 saves and that was it.
Yeah, you're just a lockdown.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a lockdown closer. It becomes part of your brand. He's 26 years old.
And I
He's
think
got the stuff. Like
part of the reason that probably is
top dollar
too, because teams want to keep arbitration costs down, and like once you get there, like they go up, and like you're probably on like a free agent contract at that point anyway, right? So teams aren't afraid to use you in the ninth and bump up those numbers. It's dumb that it's stupid that's how it works, and there's incentive to not to game sort of your player stats. But hey, that's the world we live in. But yeah, I guess maybe that's just a correlation or maybe an actual cause as to why that happens. But
yeah, 51% whiff rate on that slider from Munoz.
Crazy.
Like that's you love the guys that can strike out the world. Okay, so let's move over to second base, Steve, which you noted here is always thin. I was trying to look at numbers next to other numbers from past years. It's the same story. It's just some names have changed, right? Like Bryce Terang went in the fourth. We talked last week about Ketel Marte on the third round. We were kind of looking at him late in the second round, but then there was a big long gap. We jumped in on Nico Horner in the seventh round. Then it's like Brandon Lau, Ozzy Albies, another few rounds. Like
lots
it is
of question marks,
super thin, and just like, is it a punt? Is it Ketel or punt? And Ketel, Terang or punt, or did we do that wrong with Horner? Or do you find a little security that we got a bankable contributor at the position?
I find it. I feel like I feel secure there, and probably the last one that I feel super secure about, and like okay, like Horner is going to give you plus average and steals. The power is not going to be great. I do like the Cubs offense, so the run should be there. He had 89 runs this year.
Nice.
So, I think that's very projectable and sort of the last guy that I could do this for. As much as I like Brandon Lau, as good as a year he had, there's always rumors that he may get traded. There's always a chance that he's hurt. He played, the most games that he played in 4 or 5 years. I'll look that up real quickly. So I probably like his skills more just because he's a 30 homer player when healthy. Um, this was the first time that he played more than 110 games since 2021. Um, you know, those 2 seasons, last 2 years were good. He had 21 homers in 109, 107 games respectively. But just that's not enough. You're not on the field enough, and he needs to be someone that plays a lot, or else you're going to be trying to fill that thin position with someone that's not going to be pretty on your waiver wire at second base. And he did miss some time too this year. He played 134 games, but it was the second most played appearance of his career at 553, compared to the 615 he had in 2021 when he had 39 bombs. So yeah, I love the skills there, but I think Horner is more projectable and reliable. I kind of really want one of Marte or Turang. I think those
and
guys are
I should
really
add
good.
in I should add
But
in
yeah,
to Steve that Jazz Chisholm will
sure,
have
sure. Yes.
eligibility.
Good
He
point.
went at the end of
Yeah.
the last
Second.
pick of
Yeah.
the second round. And then in Yahoo leagues, yes, but NFBC, no. Michael Garcia is
Ooh, okay.
another one
Yeah.
that will carry the 2B
How many
there.
games did he have at second this year? Let's see.
11.
Okay, so yeah, you got that 10. So in leagues that have 10 kind of
Yeah.
appearances as a threshold, it's good. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And
man,
Garcia
for
went
NFBC, you would hope. Man, it would have been nice for him to get those 9 more
I
games.
know,
But
man. So
yeah.
Garcia went middle of the 4th round.
Okay.
Right next to Bryce Turang. So there
Yeah.
is a tax there, but I think we did it well, Steve. Like when you look at we went the 3 hitters we took prior to Horner were Devers, George Springer, Saya Suzuki. And I think that when you have when you could use some speed, Horner
Mhm.
does kind of check that box. Like if you're already good on speed, I
Yeah.
don't know that it's
I mean,
worth adding that, but
we kind of went like well-rounded in Ramirez, Gunner, then more power heavy in Devers, Springer, and Suzuki. Although Springer does chip in some steals, even though those years that were tough,
mhm.
he was still running. And then I think it was to your point, it was a great balance to those
Like
3
fit.
picks right
Yeah.
before him. Yeah, yeah,
For what it's worth, on Brandon Lau next to Horner, just on what they did this past season, Lau was a $14.40 player. Horner was
okay.
$15.80. So, like,
So
if they just did what they did,
I
Horner
mean,
is
we
slightly more valuable.
we priced them. Good job, draft.
Yeah, we
It was
did it.
priced appropriately there.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
there was what? How many hitters between them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hitters. The rest were pitchers between them.
yeah, but I think you bring up a good point that you would probably say what Horner just did is more bankable than what
Yeah,
Lau just did, right?
yeah,
In terms of like expectations and projecting out and everything, just in
yeah.
terms of durability. So,
And I guess on a
yeah,
per game basis, like Lau was more dollars per game, but he would need to play those games
correct.
to get
Yeah,
that, which is
just the availability. Yeah,
a risky proposition
yeah.
for Lau.
All right. I think we can open it up. We can talk about
Yeah.
how we liked our team, but were there any other like names or positions you wanted to like jump in on here, Steve?
What was your biggest shock, I guess, other than Caminero, of like the first 3 or 4 rounds?
I mean, this is always what I know. I talk about it that I kind of dig in and do research pick by pick, but I don't
Mhm.
go into this draft with a crisp understanding of like how I view the landscape.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
the surprise picks that come from other teams and names that pop up are always like, this is the first time when I start to realize, oh man, Nick Kurtz is an early second
Mhm.
rounder. Zach Neto is going early in the 4th round. Like just seeing some of the new names
Yeah.
is interesting in terms of like shock picks. Man, I don't know. I mean
I'm
that
surprised
just
Tatis is still a first rounder.
yeah, that was surprising. I agree because remember
That's
we were on the
11,
second
so
round. We were on the
yeah.
second round, and I was like, we could go Tatis, and you're like, he's already off the board, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
man. Um, I think it's interesting when you get to like round 7 of the pitchers and you start looking at like either the top end SP2s or the bargain bin SP1s to see like Kyle Bradish and Mizorowski there. Like those are just new names. And then it's like that whole next round. I will say that I think Logan Webb was underpriced again. Like we
For
just saw
sure.
another
Yeah.
great year from him and he went middle of the 8th round. Like that felt late to me going after the some of those names that we just talked about. I don't know, man. Like him, Logan Webb, when we talked about how you want a stable SP and it might get squeezed up earlier in the drafts, he's going after where we got like Nico Horner, like that.
Mhm.
I think there's still a little bit of like the boring factor with Webb, so I might be back in
Yeah.
there. But how about you? What sort of picks or trends jumped out and shocked you?
Yeah, I think the biggest for me, like Roman Anthony in the third. Not that that's wrong, bad or wrong. It's just it's one of those that's
True.
hey, cool to see it. Pete Crow Armstrong also in the third, right? Like mid season, we were like, this is a first rounder.
First
Like he just
rounder.
doesn't
Yeah.
stop. But like, I think we did say, hey, yeah, there should be some regression coming. I didn't expect that much
Hmm.
to come in the second half, but like he like just got the 30 homers. He had like 25 and like it's what seemed like June, right? Um, or close to it. So I think
What?
just
Yeah.
properly priced, but like also kind of like goes to show like the roller coaster that happens in season a little bit.
What was up with Matt Shaw in the 9th round? I thought that felt
Yeah,
early, like
yeah,
ahead of Isak.
yeah.
And
Um,
Isak Paredes, when we were asking last episode where he would go, like him versus Trout, would he be 150? He went in the 9th round, so he was
mhm.
like pick 120, which is a bummer because I'm really hoping he is a discount for his
Yeah.
injuries and everything. But yeah,
The
I don't
middle
know.
of the fourth round makes me feel old. Um, you can even bucket Jordan Alvarez in there, but in a row, um, it goes Jordan Alvarez, Bryce Harper, Mookie Betts, Manny Machado, Freddie Freeman,
Third
Rafael
round,
Devers. Oh, sorry,
yeah,
that's third
middle
round.
of
Third
third.
round. Yeah, excuse me.
Dude, that's such a good call. That's such a good
That's like
call.
the first round from like when like 6, 7
3
years
years
ago.
ago.
Like yeah, yeah,
More recent than that? 3 years ago, I bet, right?
yeah, probably yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's so true.
but um, yeah, it just makes me feel old. Seeing those guys who are perennial first rounders forever, in the middle of the third round. Not that they're bad picks. I kind of like all of those picks and all of those values.
Totally.
I can see Betts definitely bouncing back after becoming an elite shortstop at his age, dealing with what he dealt with um, early in the season. Um, with the trip to Japan and getting sick and losing all that weight and like kind of
Mhm.
coming out like he was pretty good the second half of the season. I know the overall line um doesn't look great, but he was pretty good in August and September. I'll pull up some splits now. But I could see some value there. Um let me get
I'm looking
the
at,
yeah.
eligibility for Mookie as well while you're
Yeah,
looking
did
at that.
118 WRC
Short,
plus in the
yeah.
second half. Hit 279, 342, 442 with a 784 OPS. So, um, you still slightly disappointing, but his July and August were or his his September October was very much Mookie Betts like, where he hit 299, 343 and slugged 547 with the 144 WRC plus, and that was on top of 115 WRC plus in August. So definitely looked like he was figuring something out in the last 2 months of the season there. So I could see Betts bouncing back.
Yeah, it'll be age 34 season, but he's chasing Cooperstown. Is he already in?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's his. I don't know. I I always thought of myself as a small hall, tough Hall of Fame guy, but I don't know, maybe it's my fantasy brain or whatever, but uh, yeah, like
We did this little
I think
exercise with
yeah, I
that Ramirez's
with
stats are actually
JRM,
better
right? Yeah,
than
yeah,
Mookie's.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I think
I
they're
think he's
both
in.
in,
I
but
think he's
yeah,
in.
point being, he's such a good just baseball player that like he's not going to fizzle out. And to ask somebody to, go through what he went through early in the season and like an off season could do him wonders, I
Yeah,
guess is the
yeah.
point, right? Um,
Mm.
so yeah, I think that's a good call as well. So what do you think of our team build, Steve? We had a super solid infield with Rafi Devers at first base, Gunner, or I should go in order here. Nico Horner at second base, Gunner at shortstop, Jose Ramirez at third. We went Springer, Suzuki in the outfield in rounds 5 and 6, and then jumped in on Kerry Carpenter in the 12th to round out the outfield. Did get Hunter Goodman in the 10th round. I
Yeah,
really liked where
me
that
too.
value was. And then yeah, pitching staff looks like Brian Wu, Framber Valdez, Spencer Strider is kind of a boom bust. There's the
Mhm.
SP3, Trevor Rogers, an exciting SP4, and then Sandy for some kind of stability with some upside there for the veteran there. But what do you think of the build so far?
I like it. It's well rounded. Jose Ramirez is as steady as it comes. Like, talk about a
Yeah.
guy that you can project his line right now, right? 282, 29 homers, 32 steals, 100 runs, 100 RBIs, book it.
Hmm.
Gunner, I sort of talked about, like, I think that Gunner is still like one of the elite talents in the bigs. I think we talked about it last show or 2 shows ago. Like, it's just, there's more ground balls. Like, there needs to be more fly balls, and who knows, maybe that oblique from early in the season messed with that, and he could have been battling it all season. And this was just such a disaster season for the Orioles. I know that sort of snowballs. Devers, I love at first base. I think it's a great option. There's maybe some, I don't know. It's more of a discount, maybe, I guess, because he's into a less hitter friendly environment in San Francisco from Boston. That whole
Hmm.
drama, but he has first base eligibility, and yeah, and I think he played. Does he have it in FBC? I'm pretty sure he does. Um,
Yeah, I think so.
I
Let
think
me
he
just
had
double check.
more games there, but kind of love that as a
29,
yeah,
29
yeah.
for
So he's good.
Devers.
So he's good there. Yeah. Woo is an interesting SP1. Like, who, maybe I wanted one of those four pitchers. Like, looking back at it, but that would come at the sacrifice of what I think is a pretty strong start for hitters there. So, um, interesting. I see a lot of my teams being built like this. I mean, it's not surprising. We sort of have a mind meld on this now at this point with how long we've been doing this. But I don't know. Kick it to you. What do you feel? How do you feel about, like, would you be comfortable with if this was a team where you had a lot at stake for?
I mean, definitely comfortable. I think that's like the operating word is it feels like stable. The like you said, Woo is the ace. It is something we'll have to kind of defend and talk about. It's a little bit of a leap of faith, but I think we've all been waiting for that breakout. So to see it and then get him in that kind of middle of the pack for SP1s that you don't have to sacrifice a first or second round draft pick for, I can live with it. And then I think we, along with Samolsky, have the no doubt best two infields in this
Yeah,
league. Like
yeah,
Samolsky's build had first base was Vinny P, second base was Bryce
yeah,
Terang,
yeah.
shortstop was Ellie, third was Machado. That's the
And
only
he's
other
got
team that
Churio
has
in
an
there too.
infield.
That's nice, but that comes at the expense of Carlos Rodon being his SP1.
Exactly. So, like, I think then, and we kind of round out the offense with, I think we did a great job, like filling out our OF 1 and 2. I think
Yeah,
Goodman is, to have a guy hitting third in Coors, the DH is 40 games, like that's underrated there. So I like our team a lot. I guess I wish I was a little bit more excited about SP2 and SP3. I'm a
Yeah,
little burnt
same.
on the Strider thing. Like it's
I
hard for
think
me to see the
Strider in
upside.
year 2 from Tommy John. Um,
Yeah.
I make that bet. Um, I know it was so bad at certain points this year, but there was a few games down the stretch. It's like, all right, maybe he's starting to figure it out, and that's
Hmm.
kind of all I need with the guy that has his upside, right? Like,
Yeah. I would
yeah,
have felt
there
great
was,
if we got Logan Webb in the eighth, like for
yeah,
whatever reason, that
yeah,
versus Fromber, like we missed
yeah,
that by 4 or 5 picks. I think I would have pushed hard for that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's fun, man. I like this team. It's just fun. J Ram, dude, like you gotta tip a hat. It's just year after year. Like
I
how
mean,
old is
if
he
you
now?
look at Strider's game
42?
logs, like it was pretty much 3 horrific starts.
Yeah, probably right when
In
I
the
got
middle.
knocked out of the playoff
Yeah,
push.
yeah, and one of them was 7 runs versus the White Sox, 8 runs at the Mets, 5 runs versus Milwaukee. Other than that, he never gave up more than 3 runs. Or he did 2 times, so on June 3rd, and at 5 runs, and on May 20th, he gave 4 runs.
Yeah,
Um,
six starts to close the year that he
yeah, we're
looked
good. Yeah.
solid, but he just didn't strike out a ton of people. Like it just didn't look like
No.
the
Yeah.
same guy. But I know what you're
Mhm.
saying that
Mhm.
he's still Strider, he's still 26, and he's got an off season for year two where we
Yeah.
typically see better results. So yeah, I think you're right. There's an argument there, no doubt. Um, yeah, I'll be curious if that's where that ADP will fall. So that's probably like 115-ish, somewhere in there. Um, I don't know. And then Rogers, we were talking about the whole second half, and we got him in the 11th round. I really like that one.
Yeah.
So that kind of
Yeah.
answered
Yeah.
back well. So I like it, man. I'm excited to talk about it more when we
Yeah,
get a chance to hop on with Nick.
I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
touch on it in a few weeks when we finish up, and then yeah, be on the lookout. I think it comes out on a corner stream, and I think we throw it on our feed as well too. So
Yeah.
you'll be able to catch it. And yeah, it's always fun to break it down with Nick and get those seal of approvals. I think we'll have a few. I know he popped for a few of our picks there, so it'll be fun. Looking forward to it.
It's great. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and joining us here as we look ahead for the first time to off-season draft landscape. But that wraps us up for episode 196. Coming up on 200, Steve. I misspoke
Got to
at the
do something
start of
for
the
that. Got to do
start of
something
the
for that.
yeah,
Let's start a brainstorm for that. That's
something
fun.
special. That might be
Yeah.
even a Christmas episode, the way
Yeah.
the holiday episode. So
Yeah.
thank you guys for tuning in. As always, thanks for talking baseball with us.
Thanks, guys. Later.